And we're now live, and welcome to anyone who's watching, either live or after the event on YouTube. This is Writer Chat, and tonight I've got with me Dominique Goodall. Hi, Dominique.
Hi.
There she is. Right, and we're on time. This must be a first for this show. I don't think it's ever been known before to be on time. So anyway, you're a writer. You're based in Kent.
Yep, that's right.
And how long have you been writing? Gone. Hello.
Oh, hang on, I've got a lag. Hang on. That's it. I've done it.
Okay. Right. Okay. How long have you been writing then?
I've never known a time when I haven't written. I won awards when I was in primary school for my writing. But seriously, since about, I think, 2010, so the last 4 years.
Okay. And how many hours a week do you think you spend writing?
It varies. Sometimes maybe 2-3 hours a week, and then other times I can go a little bit over the top and go for something like 40 hours.
Wow, that's fairly serious stuff. And what sort of genre do you write in? Do you have a particular genre you write in?
I float between 4 genres, mainly the main 2 being dystopian and anthropomorphic, anthropomorphic even.
Yeah.
Which is a term me and my friend coined because I write about animals that have more human thoughts than anything else. They speak, things like that, but it's not child stuff. I try to include normal issues, but from an animal's point of view.
That's interesting. I've not come across that before, but you see that a lot in kids' books, don't you? But
Yeah.
Not in adult books. And you're very much into huskies, aren't you?
Wolves, huskies, anything canine in that way.
Okay. And are they mice behind you?
Rats.
All right, they're rats. Okay, fair enough.
That you can sort of see darting around.
Blimey, yeah, they are busy little things. So and I mean, with NaNoWriMo, which is just finished, when did you first write NaNoWriMo?
It must have been 2010 when I first started writing properly, and that was through the urging of mine and my best friends. And we do it every year now together, as well as I do camp twice a year as well.
Wow. So have any of your writings, have you completely finished them? Are they in first draft? Have they been through edit, being published?
My publisher's got a novella and a novel of mine. I've got 2 completed novellas on my laptop, and I'm working on book 6 of a series, and I've also kind of started the next series, which is unrelated.
So that's pretty good. That's quite a lot of work. It's like me. I've got tons of stuff sitting on hard disks and things. But so the current series, how many books in that?
6.
That's the 6. So you're
Yeah, the 6th book.
Wow.
And I'm nearly 40,000 words into the last one.
Wow, that's pretty good. Do you enjoy? A silly question. Do you enjoy writing?
I love it. I live for Nano. I look forward to Nano from the January before it starts.
Really?
It's sad, but it is the one time in my life I can actually turn around and say to people, right, I can't do this, I can't do that, I've got writing to do. It's the one excuse to not go anywhere.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's a month, isn't it? So it's before Nano starts. You think, oh, it's a month. It's going to be fairly easy. But then it's quite hard work. It's quite a lot of words for normal people doing the normal 50,000 words. And I think it takes some people by surprise by how difficult it is to do 1,600 odd words each and every day for a month.
See, I've turned from that now. I find, and it's going to sound so odd, I find that too easy. When I went to a writing with the Kent writers this November, and in less than 4 hours, I'd done over 12,000 words.
Wow.
Which obviously then doing the 1,600 words a day, that's less than 40 minutes writing. I've got that done and dusted. It's no challenge, and I like to challenge myself.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I know. I sympathise. I understand. I'm just the same. How many? I mean, I first became aware of you in last year's Nano, I think.
Yeah.
How many words did you write last year?
125,000
in the month.
with a week off through illness.
And this year you were sort of 80 something.
80. It was 83 at the end, but I didn't write for a good 12, 13 days in Nano this year because I just didn't. It's not that I didn't feel what I was writing. It's right in the very end of this whole series, saying goodbye to characters. It's getting tough.
Yes, I can imagine that. Yeah, I've never got to that stage, but a series of 6 books, it must be, the end of an era, and you can't just sort of go right, stop, can you? You must.
No, especially not when I've got 95, 96 characters. 40 of those are already dead, and I've got a big battle scene coming up where I know loads more are going to die, and I still don't know what the ending's going to be.
Really? Wow.
I've got one of 3. I've got 3 in mind, but all of them are going to result in someone suffering. So it's a case of picking which one is the most unexpected.
Right. That sounds fascinating.
Just to make people, give them the shock value, so they go back and think, hang on, what the hell was happening here? How did this happen? Where did this come from?
And of course, you've got to make that. You have to provide clues to that all the way along, don't you? It has to be a logical ending, doesn't it?
To be honest, I've always done logical things in my books. My names, my species names are logical. The setting is logical, and then you get to the fact that last year during Nano I weren't feeling very well while I was writing, and I killed off a character a book too early. So I've looked at my notes the day after, so I'm thinking, oh, now what do I do? Because I've lost you when I needed you for this whole plot arc. But it encouraged a different area to go to. We're dealing with grief from an animal point of view, and I think that helped bring the book to life a little bit more.
Okay, yeah, because it's. I think if it's surprising you in the way that it's going, then it's going to surprise the reader too, isn't it?
Yes, hopefully. Not that many people have actually read anything for this.
No, but but that'll come, won't it? You've got the 5 books finished already, so presumably you'll be able to release them more or less one after the other, won't you?
It depends on what my publisher says, and obviously down to editing and whatnot, but they're not just going to be a 6-book series in a way. They're going to have the good old-fashioned glossary, and I'm also thinking about writing a companion guide for the whole series.
With that many characters, you probably need some guide.
To explain a little bit more about the world, the magics used, the characters, how they came to be. Because it's touched on in the books, but not to the lengths that I've actually got in my notes. I've got a 6-page Wikipedia-styled character species sheet for each of the 2 main species used in the book.
Okay.
And then yesterday, when I was writing, I spent a good hour and a half trying to find out if deer hide would make a good leather armour. And how it could be done in true author fashion.
Right. Yeah. Because we do that. I'm writing somebody's in Scotland and trying to get away from some bad people, and I was using Street View to find the actual roads that they're driving along, and I was happily trolling along these roads, going uphill and round the bends, and oh look, there's a farmhouse there. Make a note, farmhouse, past the farmhouse, and it, instead of like you, I write pretty fast, and I can easily write 2,000 words an hour.
Yeah.
But I spent about 2 hours writing 400 words because I was having so much fun driving around.
The moments when you're writing, though, you just have to sit there and think, right, where are you going to go now? Yeah. But I've actually had to have a map permissioned for people so they know where everything's happening, because all my other books have taken part in 3 main locations. So in this book, I've actually introduced a 4th location that's only going to be mentioned in 3 chapters until the very end. Oh, so people are left pretty much in the dark about what's happening, because I like to give them just this big surprise, which might lead to one of my endings, thinking on it.
Right.
But even when I walked to town yesterday, there was graffiti on the wall. Never seen it before, so I've taken pictures because it sparked an idea to go along with one of my high fantasy books. I've pitched it to my publisher, and she absolutely loves the idea.
Okay.
So it's amazing what can fire the attention up and make you think about what can you do to bring your story to life, give it a more 3D feel to it, so people actually realise this is a whole world you're reading about.
Yeah. Especially with fantasy or books that have a fantasy element, because there's a whole world that you have to create, a whole world, a whole environment, a whole structure of how people or animals live and how they operate, and that has to be right, doesn't it? Because people who read fantasy need that to be right.
It's like people were asking me yesterday about glue and things like that. Bear in mind, my books are set roughly 2,000 to 3,000 years in the future, after 2 ice ages. To me, the ability to make glue out of animal proteins would be a specialist skill that not everyone's going to know about.
Okay. Simply
because I don't know how to make glue. I don't think if I asked 20 of my friends, they'd know how to make glue from an animal. So, therefore, the thought of a village, quite isolated because of events that are happening, to know how to make glue is going to be such a low chance. There's no point me even thinking about adding it, because it won't be realistic.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, it wouldn't make sense, would it? And someone is going to say, "Yeah, how did they find that out?" Yeah.
It's like, I think it took 4 books for them to learn what bows and arrows were.
Really?
Because they had to wait for someone to travel to them to teach them this, and shutters for a window, like just obviously unclosed window. They're specialist things that are going to need someone to travel to teach them. Unless you know that, you've got to deal with what you've got. And I think people forget that when you're writing sometimes.
Yeah. I wrote a lot of my long fiction is apocalyptic, like pre-apocalyptic. What the leading up to things going wrong, which I personally find more interesting than post-apocalyptic. But I've written a post-apocalyptic novel, and you have to get into the mindset of that time and what there is and what people have got and how they operate, and it's quite, everything has to be right. You can't suddenly introduce something from nowhere. So there's the guy, main character, was preparing for this, so he put stuff away, but it has to have thought about it beforehand and put these things for a reason, because he thought he's going to use them later on. He can't just sort of open a drawer and, oh, look what I've just found in this drawer, because it ain't going to be there.
No. It's like I had to look up how to make arrow strings out of the sinew of the animals, like the muscle and things like that. And then it was a question of, I was asking people, well, would you cut your arm? Would you raise welts on your arm if you misfire an arrow by hand? And it gets very in-depth about what you actually have to look up. And I don't think people realise sometimes just the extent of what authors willing to go to find these things out. I mean, I've got a big dog. If I'm doing a fight scene between my animals, I'll get down on the floor, I'll wrestle with my dog. Because if one of my main characters here, if she gets attacked by an animal, I'm going to have to know what it feels like to have claws scraping me, to be bitten, even to be bitten without having skin pierced. It all needs to be experienced, because otherwise it can't be wrote about.
and how the animal would attack,
Yeah.
and what you would do to protect yourself, and how the animal reacts to that. That's I can see that. That's very good. That's a good idea for.
It's just that I got a big dog that I can do it with.
Yeah. Have you been injured wrestling with your big dog?
I've had scratches and whatnot, but she always forgives me anyway for doing it. She just wants to sleep. I just want to. For example, if I'm planning a fight, saying, "What would happen if I grab your back leg? Are you going to bite me, or are you going to bite my face? Are you just going to give me a warning growl because you can't be bothered?"
Yeah, it's good because all these different reactions. Yeah, I can see that. It's I
It all
wrestle.
depends on the mood.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we've got a golden retriever, and I wrestle with that sometimes, and it's interesting to see how she wrestles with me, and what she, because as a human you've got these arm things,
Yeah.
and you forget sometimes that the animals don't have the ability to use them as arms. They're just legs, and
Teeth.
uh, yeah, they can't speak, and they use the mouth a lot, which
Yeah.
until you notice it, you wouldn't sort of think of it. But especially if you're doing anthropomorphic fiction like you, it must be it must be tempting sometimes to give human traits to animals that aren't actually there.
See, the thing is with the species I've created, they're a bit like wolves that have gone back to dire wolves, and they've gained the ability to climb trees, run through trees, but they also have got more intelligence than a Kano would. They have a way to make strategies, they plan, they plot. It's like humans in an animal form, but they're deadly.
Yeah, I can see that. So writing big words. Yeah, you said NaNoWriMo, you did that, but now you don't find that much of a challenge. And we've met on the 50k 5 days group on Facebook. It's a shame because Kat was going to come and join us, but I haven't been able to get in touch with her. So last year, I can't remember. You succeeded in that last year. You must have done.
I did it in the 7 days, but 2 days I didn't actually write for, so it would be classed as a 5-day, 5k, 50k 5 days.
Yeah, and this year I can't remember who's going.
I did 2 days, and that was. I think I'd burned myself out to that point because I'd done 22,000 words within 2 days, which is a lot of words anyway. And that was when I started thinking, right, well, where am I going to go with this story now? What's going to happen to each character? And it just distracted me.
So before you started 50k 5 days, did you? Sounds like you didn't have much of a plan, or you didn't have a complete plan.
With this series, I've pretty much done a mixture of plotting and pantsing. I had all my characters in place, all my plot. My initial plot was put in place. I've loosely followed the idea of the plot through, but the characters are alive in my mind. They've dictated the pace at which I'm writing, what's happening to each of them. If such as my human female character has become a mopey cow and I don't like her. My villains started to have little thoughts of sanity for the first time in 5 books. And it just got to the point with the 50k 5 days where I was thinking, right, are you going to behave? Are you going to be what you were meant to be when I first started writing you? And only one of the characters wanted to play ball.
Oh dear.
Yes. And I write chronologically with different. Every other chapter is a different character, so you get so far in being able to do something like that before you get that stop and you're like, aha. Now what do I do? You don't want to do anything. You don't want to do anything. Oh.
So it comes to a complete stop, and that's what I found. This year was my 10th win at NaNoWriMo, but I failed in 1 year, and that year I failed because I thought I could pants it because I'd done it 3, 4, 5. I'd done it 3 times by then.
Yeah.
So I thought, it's 50,000 in a month. So I've done this before. It's easy. I'll just here's a sort of an idea of a plot in my head. Type, 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 and it just sort of went down a rabbit hole and didn't come back up. And so yeah, I know that feeling when your characters aren't. I mean, your characters are obviously more fleshed out than mine because mine were new, but they just didn't. I just didn't know them well enough, and couldn't push them into doing something interesting, and so it all came running to a halt. So why do you think they stopped behaving? Why do you think that they wouldn't play for you?
I think in a way it's almost, I know this is going to sound crazy, because they don't want the books to end. I know it's my choice, I'm the author, but a lot of authors, as every author knows, there are characters that are basically, you can picture them as being alive, walking, talking, telling you what not to do, and they've just decided, hang on a second, I'm not ready to die. Because
Right.
obviously
Okay.
all three main characters, one of them is going to die at the end. And it's just a toss-up at the moment between who it's going to be. Is it going to be the human, or is it going to be one of the two animals? Is the ending for one of them going to be what you expect it? Who's going to actually kill them? And just too many thoughts about the ending before I'm even there, I think.
Mm. Yeah, I can see that. I can see
Because
how
it's
it
been
would.
coming for a year. Because I've
Yeah.
only been writing this series for a year.
Right.
And it's a case of that coming end is just, I think it's a little bit intimidating.
And also, I'm sure that at the back of your mind, psychologically, as the writer, you're coming to the end, and maybe you don't want it to end either. Maybe that's an issue too. As we said earlier,
Yeah.
you've lived with these characters for a while. So so you said you've been writing the series for a year. How many words do you think you've written over that year?
The series altogether right now will come in at about 400,000 words.
Okay.
And by the time I'm actually finished with the glossaries, the companion guide, and this book now, it'll probably come in at close or over 500,000 words.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. So, do you? How do you feel about writing fast? When the story's flowing, and you said you wrote 12,000 words in 4 hours. What do you think about your writing? Do you think it's good? Because that's what a lot of fast writers get criticised for, and that's why NaNoWriMo gets a lot of criticism because it's too fast. People say.
I find that if I'm writing fast, my writing tends to be more fluid, less jumpy, less stilted, because I'm not giving myself time to think about what's happening, who's doing what. I'm just writing, and I'm writing to get it done. And it doesn't mean I'm not going overly descriptive. I'm not under describing because otherwise I can't set the scene and see it.
Okay. Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. So I've heard other people say this. The self-publisher Dean Wesley Smith talks about this a lot. Because he's a fast writer, he writes a lot of words, and he's adamant that his stories flow better because he writes faster. And and I was talking to someone over this NaNoWriMo, and they said, "Wow, you've written a lot," and I said, because I get into a sort of zone where the story is playing out in my head and it goes through my arms to my fingers to the keyboard, and I don't have to think about it. I just write what's going on in my head.
Yeah, I'm the same. It's like I know some people who do nano use Dragon, where you speak it, and I don't know how they can rack up such high counts using Dragon, because I type a lot faster than I talk. So it's just they must be speaking so fast to be able to get this to flow well, and then I dread to think of the editing to come up afterwards. I edit as I write. I don't like mistakes, spelling mistakes, grammar mistakes, anything. It really bugs me, and thought of speaking it would just sound so stilted. You'd get no individual characters coming through. Their ways of speaking. Even sometimes, I mean, I don't know if you do it, where you mimic what your characters are doing, facial expressions and hand expressions, and it's just silly things like that. It's like you're trying to get, sort of like when your characters growl or snarl or something, you sort of your lips go and you find yourself trying not to actually make that noise when you're in a room of people.
That's exactly true, and people would say that we're a bit bonkers for doing that, but you do, and sometimes I find, I'm writing and say, Dominic smiled, and I'll smile, not because it's funny, but because my character's smiling, so I do it as well. It's a bit strange, and you can't really explain to someone who isn't a writer.
Yeah,
that's what happens. But yeah, I've never tried Dragon. I've heard some people do use it, but like you, because I've recorded some videos. Obviously, it's live, and what we say goes out. But I've recorded videos as well, and I'm going through it, and I'm cutting out the silences, the ums, the ahs, and the repetitions, and stuff like that. And I thought, it's going to be exactly the same if you use speech to text. It's going to be horrible. Well, we know the way I speak anyway.
And it's not just that. You can write while you're walking along. You've got phones, tablets. You can't talk into a machine or a phone while you're walking along without people looking at you like an idiot. If you're saying, well, this person dies in such a way, and that'd really confuse me to have people watching me.
Yeah.
And then the thought of someone speaking over you and erasing half of what you've just said.
Yeah, I know what it is. I do that. I do record some little sort of 5-minute things when I'm walking with the dog, and I do hold my phone and talk into it, but I'm always alone when I do that. And once I was walking along the beach, and I walked past, I was doing da da da, and this is interesting. And I walked past this thing, and there was a little girl, digging for shells or something. And as I walked past, I saw her, and she looked up at me, and then she ran past me and spoke to her dad.
It must make it seem like you're talking to yourself sometimes.
And holding the phone up like this on the end of my arms, talking into it, and no, it's very, very strange, very strange. But I'm like you. I can't let spelling or punctuation mistakes go. I don't edit. I don't reread what I write until I come to until I finish the first draft, or draft 0 as I call it. But I can't type a word and then see that it's the little squiggly line, and I can't leave it.
The squiggly lines are the devil's work. They're there to torment you until you sort them out.
I'd like to meet the person who invented that squiggly line and shake them by the throat, because it's.
I'd like to meet someone who could invent a keyboard to make you type faster. Considering the QWERTY keyboard is to slow a person down, the speed some people achieve on it now, if they were designed a keyboard to speed us up, we'd be able to finish a book in a week.
That's true. I did for a while. I used one of those funny sculpted ones that's got some of the keys sort of tilted round, so
that bother me.
No, nice. It was very good. It was very natural. Very, the keys were all in the same place, but they were under your fingers. You didn't have to sort of put your hands like this. It was like that. But no, I can't remember what they were. It was Microsoft made it a few years ago, but I'm sure they're still around.
Probably. Generally, what I do is if I've got a plot idea, it gets texted to my friend, be it while I'm on a walk, or occasionally, I should admit, it's happened at 3, 4 o'clock in the mornings at times. She's just randomly getting a text while she's asleep with me with a plot idea that I can't write down because I'm going to bed. I've got my phone to hand. She's the only person who will understand what I'm doing. Right.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. So, are you a touch typist? Have you learnt to touch type?
I haven't learnt to touch type. I'm a self-taught fast typer. I know where the keys are. I don't need to look at the keys. generally I find I type quicker if I do because I'm not concerned with what I'm actually writing. But I know roughly how to touch type, but it's not something I'm too bothered about.
No, I've tried to take like online courses and download programs for touch typing, but they teach sort of classical touch typing, and some of the keys you use aren't the normal touch typing keys, so there's a lot more quotation marks.
Like a typewriter.
Yeah, yeah. So it really didn't, I thought, well, it's all very well, but I don't need to use those keys, and I need to use these keys more often. But
Yeah.
but no, I'm sort of self-taught typist. So what's, I mean, one of our local one of the people one of our local nano groups pointed out an app during Nano, which is I can't remember what it's called. It basically you start the timer when you start typing and turn it off and you put how many words in, and it tells you how many words an hour. Have you ever used anything like that? I mean, how fast?
This year I used a spreadsheet, and if you put in your word count and your time, it would tell you your words per hour. It was quite amusing to watch it rack it up and average out what I was writing an hour. But to be honest, your average changes. It changes depending on what you're writing, the scene, the characters, how much dialogue there is. I find the more dialogue there is, the quicker it can go sometimes, and the more you can write, or sometimes the other way around.
Yeah, I find writing dialogue is quicker because you're just recording conversations in words, so it's very much quicker. But I used to think I could write 1,000 words an hour, and I thought that was really good. And it was only last year when I started checking it that it's sort of 1,600, and this year several times I got over 2,000 words an hour, which is sort of interesting. And then you think, okay, I know, like you say, I know that now. It's not really important. It's because when you have a certain word count to achieve in a certain time, you can't guarantee, as you said, that you're going to be able to make that word count all the time.
It's like I beat my all-time best for 1,000 words at the writing in November, which was, I think, my top one was just over 1,300 words in 20 minutes, which is a hell of a fast pace. But I didn't have one sprint throughout the day where I didn't hit over 1,000 words, which I know that was the competition because I was in a room with other writers, and I find when you are writing with other people or sprinting even online, you do tend to write faster and leave behind a lot of the junk that you don't need.
No, I agree. Sprints have been very good for me this year, and my local Suffolk group were very good because there were a few people around during the day when I tended to do most of my writing, and we did half-hour sprints, and each time it was 1,000 words or so in that half hour, and I found that pretty good because you shut off for half an hour. You can shut off. You shut off from the online stuff, and you shut off from real world as well. You write half an hour, and then you've got half an hour to do what you're doing. You interact with the rest.
It stops you like procrastinating and getting involved too much in doing one thing and thinking, oh God, I've only got 2 minutes left. But me and Jen, she's my Scottish writer friend, but she's in the Nano Kent group because her group this year were just really bad with support. We were running nightly, hour-long sprints, and we didn't get many people interested, which surprised me. Because I feel if you write for longer, then again you're not going to get the stopping, starting, stiltedness of what you can see with sprinted writing.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. So yeah, it's. I think it's because people have stuff. Maybe not a night, but people have stuff that they have to do and kids to pick up or.
We were doing them at 10 p.m, so we were thinking, most people are at home, kids are in bed, dinner's done. We thought we'd get 5-6 people interested. but it was all people are wanting 20-minute sprints and half-hour sprints. Don't get me wrong, I love doing the shorter ones, but I find the longer ones where I can concentrate a bit more intently on what I'm doing can be the best sprints I can do.
No, that's interesting because we're sort of quite similar in how we write, you and I, and the way we write and what we think about writing. But I find an hour is a bit too long because I find my attention wandering, or I need a little bit of information, or there's something. Whereas 1,000 words, I can prepare for it. So, and I know what I'm going to write about next and what's going to happen. So I can do that 1,000 words in half an hour, and then plan for the next half hour. But I find an hour a bit too long. I thought about it this year, and I thought that would be good if I could do an hour, 2,000 words. It's brilliant. It really gets the writing done, but it just didn't work for me. I think I've got my attention span's too short. I think I go wandering off.
I put the music on. I've got the music on, and I have it quite loud, so no one talking or anything happening can distract me. And then I just listen to music. Often I sing along as I'm writing and silly things like that. I've always got the TV on, but it's always muted. And people go to me, so why have it on? I went, because then it's there. I can look at it, but the words and the sounds can't distract me from what I'm actually doing. But I will admit, I have had, especially in the last 2 books, song lines have probably made their way into my books. Full on sentences and silly things like that, or they've spawned an idea. And I've had to play the song 30 to 40 times through to get this scene out, and then afterwards I'm sick of the song.
Yeah, that's true. Because inspiration, as you said earlier, inspiration can come from anywhere, and if you've got a story running in your head, there's little things can crop up, and things you see when you're out and about, or things you can see on the telly, or my 50k 5 words project was a different project to the main Nano one, and it was crime. And I was going to a write-in in Suffolk, and I stopped at a supermarket and I had something to eat. And I was looking at a local paper, and one of the stories just leapt out at me. I thought, why would someone do that? Because da 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 da, and I was off. And I thought, this is fantastic. This is a great story. And it would make a good 50k 5 days. And the funny thing is that both that and my main Nano project this year, I really like, and I've not had that before. When I've sat back, because there were individual things written for NaNoWriMo, I've sat back afterwards and thought, well, that's it's sort of an interesting idea, but the manuscript needs so much work on it, and it needs completely rewriting. I can't be bothered, and I've just left it to one side. But this year, I don't know. Maybe my thinking's clearer. I don't know what it is, but the 2 projects, both, I really love. I really, really love. So I'm doing. I'm continuing the main Nano project. I'm going to get that finished, and then I'm going to finish the 50k 5 days. Get that done. And then get the things blooming published. I've got too much stuff lying around. That's my problem. It sounds like you don't have that problem. It sounds like you've got your sort of main projects and you tend to stick to them.
I wouldn't say that so much. I've got the story I'm working on next, probably camp will be it, is part of a dream, and the characters morph from that. Then I've got the companion guide to this series. I've got a collaboration I'm doing, and another high fantasy story that I'm thinking of establishing as an actual book, and then possibly a sequel to the novella I wrote. Because I can't just have one project. I like to be one of these people. I would hate to say it because I'm petrified of spiders, but I'm like a spider with my web, and I know where everything's laid out on it, what I'm going to do on what days, and what work. Sometimes, I mean, with Nano, I was slicking between doing my 6-book series and the collaboration, because some days one character would come through more strongly than the other. But then I run into a halt on one of them and I'd switch. Just because I think sometimes it works better like that, and that might be how some people get tripped up with Nano, is to only have one project to rely on. When that goes wrong, they panic and stop.
Yeah. I think I last year, because I'd done so many, and because I'd seen so many the same questions being asked time and time again, I did a sort of 10+2 tips for Nano, I think, and one of them is have backup projects, because you don't know until you start. If you haven't, especially if you're a new writer, you don't know until you start writing a project like that how it's going to sit with you and how well you're going to feel writing it, and how well you'll write it. And I think sometimes if you, like, because we all do it, we all sort of get to a stop, and it's not writer's block, it's just there's something about the plot or the characters, and it just isn't working. So it's much better to put it to one side, as you've done and I've done, and take up another project, work on that, and then while you're thinking about the other project, while you're walking or down the shops or something, and all of a sudden something will click, and you think that's the way out of it, and you can go back to it then.
Yeah, it does give you. It just also gives you something to rely on. So when you see the people who are saying about getting behind because they can't write on one project, it gives you a bit of leeway on your word count. If you are only doing the 50k, like the 50k in 30 days, it's less strain if you've got even 2 other projects to work on. Split your time. Someone went to me before Nano, I've got 3 projects I want to do, but I can't do them all. I went, why not? I went, be a Nano rebel. I went, work on one day, one the next day, one the other day, and then just cycle it through. I went, because then you'll get so much written on the main parts. You can say 20,000 words per book for Nano. You're laughing then at the end because you're 30,000 words in on 3 more books.
Yeah.
And for some authors, that's most of a book.
No, it's all about strategies, isn't it? And I think I'm sure I remember looking at the stats for, I think it was 2011 or 2012 or something, and 14% of the people that registered completed and verified their 50k, which I was surprised at. I was surprised that was such a low figure. But I think it is because people don't know the strategies and encounter difficulties and just stop. And if they have busy lives, they haven't worked out when they're going to actually fit in the writing. And I think
sometimes. I mean, I admit this year I've not long got Netflix, and I was rewarding myself every night with Netflix. And I think working on a daily reward system can help you with Nano as well. You have to hit so many words, and you can do this or you can do that. But tomorrow you've got to get back on it to earn the next part.
Yeah, and also the problem of stopping. I think once you stop for more than a day or 2, this is what I find. If you stop for 2 days, then you lose all momentum, and it's really hard to pick it up again. Which is why I wanted to carry on with the Nano projects after November, because I want to finish them. I want to finish them, get them edited, and publish them. But I know if I think, because so many people have said, oh, I've worked really hard, so I'm going to have December off. I just think, if you don't write anything in December, come January, it'll be, January the 1st, I'll start it next week and the week after, and then before you know it, you're back at next November and thinking, what did I do with my Nano? Nothing.
See, I've just started up proofreading as a business as well. And the days I weren't writing for Nano, I was actually proofreading.
Okay.
Because I enjoy to read someone else's manuscript and know that I can help them polish it. I've got, as I said before, I don't like mistakes, and even more, I hate mistakes in printed word. Because it just bothers me. I just think, well, the editor couldn't be bothered, and they didn't bother to have it proofread. and I don't understand how anyone can do that.
Yeah. I know some, the thing that I've had published, it's been read, reread. I've done it. My wife's done it. Other people have done it, and even when it was totally finished, totally checked, and the first time I picked it up afterwards, bang, there was a problem with it. So I think it's almost impossible to completely have a manuscript error free, but you've got to have a separate editor. You really do.
And you need to go for people outside the family and friends as well.
Mm.
I mean, I've reviewed books because I do as much as I can in the reading writing world as I possibly can, and I found mistakes. And I always message the author if I can on Facebook and go, look, please don't hate me, but there's a mistake on this page. And I mean, they always thank me, but I always get that little feeling of, please don't hate me for telling me this, but this is a mistake. I mean, one of the authors, she's brought out a lot of books. She must have brought out, I think, nearly 30 books now. And there was quite a few glaring mistakes. And I've messaged her. She was perfectly fine about it. She said, thank you for letting her know. But when you're making simple mistakes after releasing 40 books, being on bestseller lists, it kind of makes you wonder how people can do it.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the mistakes I found, and it was a pure proofreader, beta reader kind of mistake, was a character liking one flavour of ice cream one time, and then it changing halfway through the book. And they're little points like that with a character you should know.
Mm.
Even if you just have a little bullet point, this character likes chocolate ice cream, doesn't like strawberry. Then you're going to remember that rather than write it, publish it, and then find out the mistake.
Yeah. And I think some people try and publish too quickly before the book has been properly prepared, and that's just dangerous, and your reputation can get ruined for doing that, and people won't pick your books up again. So it's a bit foolhardy.
I'm one of those people. I'm afraid I can't. A mistake does tend to make me wary about reading that author again. I mean, my long novel that's with my publisher, I wrote not last Nano, the Nano before. So 2 years ago. It's still not published, it's still not fully edited. I'm quite happy with that fact. That means it's having the time it needs to make it into the best novel it can be. I don't write to get rich. To be honest, the reason I write so quick is because if I ever decide I want to take a break from writing, the average author releases 2 books a year. I've got plenty of books backed up if I ever didn't have a laptop or I didn't feel like writing at all. Then I haven't got to worry about losing my online presence because I've still got books I can send.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, I totally agree with that. Yeah, like you, I know people, and whenever I see a book recommended or hey, my book has got a 5-star review or something, and the first thing I do is go to Amazon and look inside, and the number of times you look inside and within a page you go, ouch, wrong, and you just don't buy it. You don't even look at it. It's very, very bad, and it makes you wonder whether people have actually gone through an editor or whether they've got their mate to look through it who said, yeah, it's lovely, and away it goes.
I mean, this year I bought out an anthology for charity. And I would admit, we didn't pay for anything to do with it because obviously it's for charity. It shouldn't cost us money. I did just about everything I could of it. I formatted it. I designed the book cover. We've done all the publicity. We've paid for nothing for it. And people are saying it's pretentious in places, but then it's got 32 authors in it. There are going to be parts where it's going to come across pretentious because that's how the person writes. It's not a case of that's how the book is. And they don't always make that clear.
Yeah, and anthologies can be a bit of a mixed bag sometimes, and because it's different writers who write in different styles and different genres and just write differently, sometimes their writing doesn't agree with you as a reader, and you just don't like it.
Well, then that's the good thing about an anthology with so many people, is you're going to find something in there that you're going to like. I mean, we had a mixture of poetry, haiku, full-length stories, facts as well about wolves, because that's what it was based around. And we tried to include everything we could to bring to light the fact that wolves have got such a bad reputation that's unneeded. They aren't what people think.
Okay.
I mean, one of the stories, I think I wrote it under a pen name in the book, dealt with cattle ranchers and wolves, which is a big... Obviously, whenever you hear about wolves in the news, it's to do with ranchers in America. Not liking it. So I thought I'd write it from the wolf's point of view, why a wolf could go after cattle.
Okay.
And people will think, some people will read it and think, well, how can they know? But I'm hoping other people will read it and think, well, actually, maybe that makes sense.
It's a different perspective, isn't it? It's
yeah.
That's so interesting. I like that. Yeah, I like that. Well, I think we're probably we're sort of coming to the end of our time anyway. So, is there a place where people can sort of keep in touch with you, see what you're doing, see when you've got books coming out, that sort of thing?
Well, I've got my Facebook page. My Facebook page, which is just Dominique Goodall, an author. Nice and simple to find. I think it's got a picture of me hugging a wolf.
Okay.
And I'm on Twitter at Dom Goodall. Nice and simple. Again, I don't need any flourishes or anything to make me stand out from the crowd, because there aren't many people like me anyway.
You're an individual. No, that's great. I'll make sure that those go in the show notes anyway, and so people can see what you're up to, look at what you're writing, look at what you've.
I do share snippets as well of my writing on Facebook.
Okay, that's
I like
good
to share little bits, and I've even shared the other day my secret project, my novella. I shared a secret gem on my only actual Facebook, but it is going on to my author page later tonight.
Okay.
And it gives absolutely no hint about what's happening in the book, but I'm hoping it will catch the attention of some people.
That's the way you do it. I'm writing Small Stones this December, which is like very short pieces of sort of I don't know, descriptive writing. It's called, so it's almost like prose poetry. I'm never a poet, but it's nice to be able to do something different from the long novel writing stuff, to actually look at one particular situation when you're out and about, or even in the house, just look at something and pick out something and describe it really fully, and I enjoy doing that. So I share that on my blog, there's other. We used to do a sample Sunday thing.
Yeah.
So I'll make a note to myself.
Another thing I do as well is, if I'm starting a story and I want to know the characters, I'll do a flash fiction of a point when they were younger that formed their character, and blog that out so people get to learn a little bit more about the characters before they became my characters, basically.
That's a good idea. Yeah, I like that idea. So it's
just
like
1,000 words and no more, any less is fine. Just a way to, let people think, hang on a second, right. So this character's got a full backstory, and you can see then where their motives come from later in life.
That's a really good idea. I like that idea. And it's almost like DVD extras, isn't it? It's like an extra little bit for free that people can pick up on. That sounds really good. It's
like a teaser before the book's even wrote. It's just like a pre-teaser.
Very good. I'm going to make a note of that too. Put that in the show notes. Right. Okay then. Well, we'll say it's about an hour, so that's really good. I'd like to thank you, Dominique, for coming on. It's been really interesting. I'm sure the viewers will find there's lots of things to pick up on, especially on writing fast and how it feels and what it's like and how to do it and the advantages of it, which I'm we're both sort of keen devotees of, and I'll see you around wherever on Facebook usually.
I'm always on Facebook. It's always running.
Yeah, same with me.
Unless I'm asleep.
Okay, then I'll take us off there. Thanks a lot, Dominique.
Thanks for having me.
That's a pleasure. Really, it's been really interesting. And thanks to everyone who's watched and who will watch. And we'll catch you soon on Eye to Chat. Cheerio.